Yeah, of course, the states is built on. Pretty much. Only once. So that's the fifth. I mean, they didn't do all. Yeah, in fact, it's 60 years. Look at that. There are other. Yeah. A lot of things. This one, 16. Rest of the time. Or the problem is.
Okay, 10 more minutes, then we will start. I'm gonna have a drinks, a coffee, a cookie, a pizza, pizza. Wash your both sides. And warm up. Don't worry, I'm covering them up for her, not knows. I wrote those notes, so you don't need to worry. Like I'm sleeping.
Ruth just got a great tea.
Ah, sister. So, he's on camping now. You're from Ottawa. Help her out. Yeah, you know, they have low budget, right? So can't pay people to get family members.
Yeah.
So whether I'm good at it or not, we don't know. But she's not me.
That you have to really dig in, just jump forward and say, I'm good.
Sure, it is. And it feels like you don't get it. It doesn't help that. It's part of it.
came from Ottawa to do this. So I guess it's a good thing it's a short campaign. So
That's true.
yeah.
Before it started.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
the eggs are- I haven't got it yet. It's bad, so it's bad.
We did a great campaign.
Biologically predetermined.
Yeah.
The facial recognition stuff. Sometimes.
Yeah. Yes, it's okay.
Even my identity. Trying to convince her daughter that she can't tell you what's with this. True.
That's a courtesy of oh,
Oh gosh.
story.
Okay, let's not call 911.
Okay, I'll be extra careful.
It's not
Okay.
really the best place.
I think
Not really the best place. Anyway.
Yeah. It's a mic.
No, it's totally fine. Ah, man.
just after you work on it for like half an hour.
I realized I put the microphone the wrong way.
you a heads up. I'll be crouching in front of it, but I'm not gonna block your camera.
If you do, I won't blame you. It's fine.
No.
Low budget.
Well, but that works.
You're right. If it's low budget and it works, it's not low budget. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more minutes. Candidate, please come on up and have a seat.
It's
Let's put it back here.
Sorry.
So candidates decide to have streaming camera there, and it's just facing towards only the candidates. So you guys gonna be okay. I mean, you guys have very beautiful hair tonight, but it's gonna be just a candidate, and they will agree upon. They will be broadcasted. Thank you. So we're gonna start now. Okay. Okay, so it's great turnout. Thank you very much. Welcome everybody, and we would like to do a land acknowledgement at first. We are on unceded land of a Squamish Nation, CIA of Seychelles Nation. We are here tonight to share our knowledge and walk the path of truth and reconciliation. Labor Councils commit to bring more dialogues between people and make sure everybody's voice is heard. So this is a good educational platform. And I always choose high schools because we need to engage young people to be with us for the next generation to come. So my name is Miyuki Shinkai. I am president of the Sunshine Coast Labor Council. Labor Council is a union's union. We represent many working people. Tonight's forum, we decide to dedicate to our late sister, Crystal Penner. She was an educator and young, very bright science teacher. She took me to the Labor Council meeting 7 years ago, and I ended up to become a president. So that's how powerful she was. Very good activist, and always cared about everybody have a voice at the table. And education continues. So this is the forum. I hope everybody can learn from candidates, and the candidates can learn from each other. There's a lot of good questions coming up. Okay, so I am going to thank all of you. This is a great turnout, by the way, the rainy Monday. But thank you all for showing up. And there's a pizza there, and good refreshment. If you're getting a little tired and you need to have some snacks, then please just stand up and grab some. And thank you to all the candidates. This is a big job, stepping up and getting all the 150 signatures and get ready on time. I really appreciate your courage and the commitment to be here as a political leader. It's a big task, and thanks for that. Okay, so I just want to introduce our candidates here because you're probably wondering who these people are. So to start with incumbent, Mr. Patrick Weider from Liberal. And then Mr. Jäger Rosenberg from MVP. You guys like my arts and craft, and I worked on it in the coloration, so we know which one's what. Yes, and Miss Lauren Greenlow from Green Party. And then Mr. Payman Askari from PPC, People's Party of Canada. And I did receive a regret from Mr. Keith Roy from Conservative, and I couldn't get any contact reply from Senate Manny from Animal Protection Party. So you may want to check them out online. There's information on the website. But for tonight, we have 4 great candidates to hear what is what. Like we were all wondering about what their platforms are and what their party policies and so on. So just a little bit about the Labor Council. We're the grassroots organization, and we are the union, as I say, union's union. We look after people's workplaces, safety, and some fair wages and so on. And tonight we have a very good volunteers. Some of them just showed up. They didn't break their knees. They came here with the good passions to help out the community to be a better place. So, and have a round of applause for the volunteer members. And just a few housekeeping. In case of emergency, there has been a lot of emergency stuff happening. Just wanted to mention, here is the exit door. Just don't run too fast, but here we are. Okay, and then first aid kit is here. As a public worker, we all trained in the first aid. So you just have to raise your hand. We'll come to you, okay? If in case of anything happened to your life. And then washroom, well, maybe you need to go to washroom or need to have a glass of water. Those are two, both end of a hallway. So you can go, just step out and help yourself, okay? And then agenda is right here tonight. 6 p.m. We've done a welcome and land acknowledgement. We're going to go right into candidates introducing themselves for 5 minutes, okay? And then after that, we'll have 4 questions prepared from our union members. Healthcare question, and second one, affordabilities, and the job and economy, and the 4th one is pension. There's a lot of people wanted to know more about the pensions in this crowd. Okay, and 7:15ish, I did all the math, like adding with all the numbers, right? And for 7:15, we have 2 Elphinstone School students asking questions. We'll have a very bright, good-looking kids coming up here and asking the next future questions. So, and then 7:31 to 7:45, we have a time for you guys to ask questions. If you think of something else, please come on up, your line up, and then we'll just go until 7:45. And after that, you can have more pizza and more cookies, or be able to engage other candidates. I think you guys are all catching a ferry after this, are you? Yeah, but you guys live here, so you can ask a lot more questions if you need to. Okay. All right. So just before we start, I just want to say this is going to be a very, very, very important election, and your vote matters big time, big time. Every single day, changes are coming. You can feel it, right? The world is changing really fast, but so exciting. You don't have to watch TV or movie anymore. You live in a reality show. Really, exercise your voting privilege, because I don't have it. I'm Japanese landing immigrant, and I can't have a dual citizenship. So I remain Japanese. I'm a landing immigrant. I don't have a voting power. I feel like I'm running something with this jacket, but I can't, right? You guys can. You might think of, maybe next year, 2026, running for municipal election, or 4 years down the road, you might want to step up and take this position. So please listen carefully how you can, answer these questions maybe next time around. When that mature candidate, you can learn each other, right? Always there's a possibility. So open heart and just be curious about how the question answers be put to again. Sounds good? Okay, so we're gonna do introduction. And I think Patrick's ready because he's done a lot of talking in front of me. So let's put Patrick first and 5 minutes about who you are and what is the motivation behind you run this campaign. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Miyuki, for the kind introduction. And I think it's especially inspiring for someone who's not going to be voting in this election to contribute in the way that you are to our democratic process. So thank you so much. So good evening, everybody. My name is Patrick Weiler. It's been the privilege of my lifetime to serve as your federal representative for the last 5 years, and I'm running again to serve as your representative in this election with the Liberal Party. I want to thank I think first all of you for coming out tonight, and I want to thank the other candidates that are here today, Eamon, Lauren, and Yager for joining. Because while we may disagree on policy, that doesn't mean that we need to be disagreeable. I think it's very healthy to have a good political debate. But I can't help but notice there's a very notable absence here tonight. And I think the bare minimum as someone who's looking to represent us is to show up, to be accountable to people.
You should stand up so we can see your handsome face.
How's that? Better. To stand up, to be accountable, to be transparent, and to answer the tough questions. So tonight there is a big rally happening with my party leader and prime minister happening, but I'm here and I'll be here 100 times out of 100 because of that process. So I was elected in 2019, and if you know me well, you know that I like to be a very collaborative person. I like to work across orders of government. I like to work across party lines to get things done. And what that's meant in Gibson's is working together to make some very big changes for our communities. That's critical investments in infrastructure, like what we've done on stormwater, investments in things like the Granton's Landing Community Center. It's also meant some major investments in affordable housing. There's been investments in the School Road project, social housing, the federal government invested in, and the Shaw Road project just a few blocks away from here. And that's part of $272 million the federal government's invested in below market housing in our riding since 2019, which has built about 1,100 units already. But we know there's a lot more work to do on building more affordable housing, but also get more housing built writ large. Last year, we signed an agreement with the town of Gibson's to speed up their permitting process. And actually, we've seen over the last year, Gibson's has become one of the best performing communities in the country on that. And so we have a lot more work that we need to do there. It's also meant working to advance affordability, like bringing in $10 a day childcare. This is life-changing for families. There's been about 600 spaces that have been built in our riding. We need a lot more than that so that young families can get the kind of support that they need. It's been things like the Canada Child Benefit, which has lifted over 300,000 children out of poverty. And it's things like the increases to OAS and GIS, and some programs that are making a big difference for seniors, like the dental care program, which is providing seniors with access to dental care, saves about $800 a year. There's about 14,000 people in our riding that are already benefiting from that. But we know we have a lot more to do in this space to meet the expectations and the needs that we have in a growing community like this. It's also meant looking forward about, how do we solve some of the big transportation challenges we have on the Sunshine Coast? And I'm very much struck by the leadership that the CRD has shown to provide no-cost transit for young people.
Yeah.
It's already making a very good some of the things I'm working on, getting electric passenger ferry service that will go from Gibson's Harbor to the Cole Harbor. There's an agreement now in place where that's going to be in effect by 2027. It's also looking at things like getting better transit service on the Sunshine Coast. But seeing as my time is starting to get short, this isn't about what's happened over the last 4 years, last 6 years, or last 10 years. This election, as Miyuki said, is coming at a very critical time. You know, our country is under threat, our sovereignty is under threat. And it's one of the reasons I was an early supporter of Mark Carney. I think he's the kind of leader that we need to navigate us through a very, very challenging time and be willing to stand up for Canada, for our cultural institutions, to build the strongest economy that we can in the G7, so we can reduce our reliance on our partners down south. So I've seen my time has run out, and I'm looking forward to the questions that we have and the questions coming from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I forgot to tell you, Diego, there's a timekeeper here. I hired a very smart timekeeper, Miss Kim. She's from a ferry workers association, I mean ferry workers union. And if she shows that yellow card, that means 1 more minute left, and the red is done. You are done. Okay. So it's all fair. Okay, thank you. Yeah, but just stand up and chin up high. You look really good in the camera. The mom is taking pictures. Make sure to smile at that. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I am Jaeger Rosenberg. I am your NDP candidate for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country. Every time I have to say that, it's such a mouthful. So the media is obviously talking about how important this election is, because it really is important. Donald Trump is a fascist. Fascism around the world is on the rise. I just spent 4 months living in Germany, and during in Germany, they had an election recently, a snap election, where the far-right AfD, essentially a neo-Nazi party, came in second place. The centrist parties, the SPD and the Greens, they tried to move to the center, placating the far-right, adopting their policies on immigration and other issues. That doesn't work. That's not how you stop the far-right. It just gives them a victory. The one party that stood up against the far-right was unapologetically left-wing Die Linke. They were, at the start of the election campaign, everyone wrote them off. They were going to get decimated, wiped out. By the end, they were the only left-wing party that gained seats. In this election, you can't give away your principles because you're scared of the right wing winning, because that is giving the right wing a victory. You need to stand firm, and as your candidate, that is what I'm doing. The NDP, we have stood on the side of workers for our entire history. We are the Workers' Party. We have gotten anti-scab legislation done. I noticed Patrick was talking about childcare and dental care and pharmacare. The Liberals had 10 years to get those programs done. They didn't do it until we, as the NDP, forced it through. So it's important to recognize, not only who's in government, but who's influencing the government. During Justin Trudeau's first term, from 2015 to 2019, the Liberals had an unchecked majority. They broke their promise on electoral reform. They didn't make any progress on pharmacare. They didn't make progress on childcare. Housing prices skyrocketed, and it was corruption scandal after corruption scandal. SNC Lavalin, the Aga Khan scandal, the We Day charity scandal. Versus the last 5 years, where the NDP has helped the balance of power. Look at the difference. Pharmacare, childcare, anti-scab legislation, CERB payments, so much more. Because we have held the government to account, and we have forced them to get left-wing policies passed, rather than doing what the Liberals have always done, where they campaign from the left during elections, and then once they're in power, they essentially become conservatives. And now with Mark Carney as a new Liberal leader, there's a lot of excitement about him. And I understand why. It's nice to finally have a change from 10 years of Justin Trudeau. But he's even more centrist. He's not even pretending to be left-wing anymore. One of the first things he did was give a tax cut to millionaires and billionaires. He got rid of the Ministry of Labor. I don't think a prime minister who gets rid of the Ministry of Labor is on the side of workers. He got rid of the Ministry of Women. He got rid of the Ministry of Equality. He is in it for billionaires and millionaires. When he was the head of Brookfield, he directly contributed to the housing crisis. He evicted people so he could jack up rents. That's not on the side of renters or people who are struggling to find housing. I personally am struggling to find housing. People in my generation, the idea of owning a house, I've given up on that dream. And that's not okay. We need young people need a seat at the table. Regular people need a seat at the table. Billionaires, rich CEOs, they have all the representation they need. What we need is good union workers represent. We need young people represent, and we need a voice for regular people. We need electoral reform so the Liberals can stop using their excuse of strategic voting to win elections, which, check out my social media. I already have a rant on my strategic voting is not helpful or strategic. But they promised in 2015 and got elected on a promise to get rid of it. They broke that promise. And now they're trying to win an election by scaring everyone into voting for them when, you should vote for what you believe in. You should vote if you think another candidate's the best candidate. I respect that. Vote for them then. But if you think the NDP is the best party, if you think that I'm the best candidate, do not get scared into voting differently. Vote what you believe. I'm going to yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go, Ms. Greenlaw.
Hi, I'm Lauren Greenlaw, the Green Party candidate. Mayuki, I want to thank you for that beautiful introduction and also your amazing timekeeping skills. I would like you to invite you to our council meeting so you could do that there because we are always over time. But yeah, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. My background is I am an earth scientist and I'm also a municipal councillor in the district of Squamish. I have 2 young children and I got into politics because I have been hearing since I was 13 years old that the science was clear, that climate change was going to devastate our environment. And I waited for 30 years for somebody to show leadership, for somebody to do something. And no one ever came. And it was then that I realized, no one's coming to save us. We need to take action ourselves. And one day I was walking home and my neighbor, who's just a brilliant filmmaker, just a lovely human being, she said, would you be interested in running for municipal politics? Because we're looking for women. We're looking for people to represent women in leadership roles in political situations. And I said, yeah, let's do this. I've been looking for a way to use all of my skills to, I'm an earth scientist. I understand these deep systemic issues. I've been looking for ways to use my skills to help the people. We are at a point in evolution right now where I like to say we get to choose between either going the way of the dinosaurs, i.e. being whatever the human equivalent is of a chicken to a human, because that's what is the new evolution of dinosaurs, versus basically, what we could be. We could rise out of this. And to Jager's points, this is not a time to make decisions out of fear. People are creating chaos for us, and we need to have responses instead of reactions. So that's part of why I got into politics. But once I got into the municipal level, I realized that municipalities are so hamstrung by the federal and provincial governments that we get 10% of your taxation income and 60% of your overhead costs. And that's what's happening is all of the, we're getting downloaded upon from upper levels of government, all of the costs, and we're not seeing any more money. So we're seeing homelessness on our streets, and we municipalities have to take care of this, right? Because these are our people. We're seeing mental illness crisis, affordability crises. I can't help with any of these pieces. So that's why I'm trying to take it to a federal level to see if I can address it there. One of my other concerns, another thing that Jager mentioned was, again, a lot of people are voting out of fear, and it's basically, I hear people saying, I don't want a conservative government. So I have to vote, liberal, pretty much. But one of the things, when you look at international think tanks on climate change, the first thing they mention is addressing misogyny, addressing gender equality. And the first thing that Carney did on his first, second, third day was cut the Department of Gender Equity. And that is a huge red flag. And that department survived Harper. So that should tell you how far right we're leaning. To, again, Jager's point, his conversation about Germany, we are moving further and further right. But that piece, and then But that's so much better than Mr. Adoption over abortion and two genders. Like, you look at what's happening in the United States right now, women are dying and trans people are being treated as subhuman. It is a huge problem. And I don't want to see that in our country. I want to stand for people's rights. So what I'm here to do is basically start conversations about systemic change. And you do not see that from a liberal and conservative party because the systems are serving them. So we need to step out of that fear, and we need to, as Mayuki was saying in her opening statements, we need to be in our hearts. We need to vote for the candidates that we feel will have integrity and represent us without being whipped, represent us in public and in government. So yeah, that's why I'm here. And thank you all for coming out. It is so important to engage in your democracy because democracy dies in darkness and we need your voices. So thank you. And thank you for listening.
Mr. Kaspari, are you ready? Okay, please stand up. So, by the way, Mr. Kaspari came first and he set up all the chairs, so he should have a lot of
Hello, Gibsons. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to come out here. Ma'am, thank you very much for hosting. You're doing a wonderful job. You're a wonderful human being, and I don't know, I have only known you for a few hours, but you have a very bubbly personality. I won't take 5 minutes. It's all good. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for being here. Patrick, you and I might not see eye to eye, but I'm sure you're a wonderful person. You're doing a public service, and truth be told, your father scares the living daylights out of me, so I'm going to be nice to you. I'm gonna fly by the seat of my pants. I didn't come prepared. So about me, I came to Canada in '89, and I was 6 years old. And when you're a kid, parents are kind of like gods in your eyes. And I remember like watching my father operate. He was a developer, so he would he'd buy a plot of land, he'd build a house, and he'd flip it. Now, fast forward 35 years, I look at my father and like I can see the pain behind his eyes. He's making property tax payments, he's got loans he's got to pay back, and he just can't make it. And like 4 years ago, I think if I'm running for the People's Party, our ideological position is very much individual liberty, small government, sovereignty of the individual. 4 years ago, he would never listen to me. He basically, I look like I had a tinfoil hat on. And now he's coming to me and he's asking me like, Payment, why are property taxes going up so high? Why is everything so expensive? Why is the cost of living so expensive? And it's not just my father, and it's not just my circle of friends. I was talking to, I just happened to cross paths with Stockwell Day when the Conservative Party leadership debate conventions were going on for the Leslie Lewis event, and he said that all of his friends were leaving Canada. I have friends that are leaving and going to Mexico. I have friends that are leaving and going to the US. They're going to Europe. Stockwell Day knew like scores of them. Roman Bobber, when he was running for the leadership convention, he said this multiple times in interviews. And when I see former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien the other day in the leadership convention, Liberal leadership convention, when he said, there's nothing wrong with Canada. I don't want my country to be suffering, but when he says there's nothing wrong with Canada, he starts citing statistics about how, with GDP per capita, we're in the top bracket of all the G7 countries. Fine, but like you're telling me not to believe my own lying eyes. So all of this stuff, it set me down this path, and I'm thinking, what can I do to pay back the country that gave so much to me and my family? Like I started doing the things that I call cowardly. I'm hiding behind my computer and I'm putting out a tweet. I'm sending an email to my senators. And then eventually I realized like I have to run for office. I don't want to be here. I'm scared to death. I'm not a very good public speaker. My picture's on my billboard. And I hate the way I look. But like I had to do something. And about myself, I have a bachelor's in computer science. I have a PhD in computational neuroscience. I run multiple companies, and people ask me, why are you supporting the People's Party? It's a small party, and they get attacked and trashed in the media all the time. But the People's Party, they talk about the issues, and they allow me to explore the main challenges this country is facing. And it's not what the media is talking about. We have crippling debt. We have a financialized economy. Like, we don't have industry. We're putting counter tariffs against the US. Counter tariffs worse when you have industry. So we're counter tariffing them. We don't have industry. The working class is getting wiped out. I'm not working class. I'm upper middle class. Why am I the one that's standing up for the working class and nobody else is doing it? Like, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional, but it goes back to what I said about, I came here in '89. I love this country. I remember the first thing my mom did when we landed in Ottawa, the local residents, they took her and they showed her around town and they taught her how to speak English. And when Justin Trudeau came out and called these people, they call them racist, sexist, homophobes, transphobes, just because they're Canadian working class. These are my friends. These are my doctor, my lawyer, my accountant. I lost my mind. I can't believe a head of state would say that about his own people. So, sorry, I'll stop there, but that's why I'm running it. I'm hoping to make a difference. Thank you.
So how are they doing? Yes, really good, you guys. Not only you got really good jacket today, but also your speech shined. So I'm going to move to Labor Council questions. We have a lot of public workers here, and one of whom right next to me is Miss Jen Campbell. She works in BCGU, so the BC Government General Employees Union. She's representing that, and she's our delegate to Labor Council. And these so sister brother, they work all day, all night in the public sectors, and they come out and volunteer. So they're awesome. They're the true, heroes to me in many ways. So she had a question about healthcare, and you guys are just kind of listen to it and digest. And you have 3 minutes for each person. Let's go from a payment, because you're right now very emotionally charged up, and I think you're going to do well with answering this question. Because you got the momentum here. So you're gonna seize the moment. Okay, so we go this way. Is that okay? Yeah, so 3 minutes, think about it. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'd just like to start by saying thank you so much for being vulnerable and having the courage to put your life out there in the public. It's such a big job. So thank you for doing that. My question. My question's around healthcare. Decades of targeted investments and the deliberate shift from a fully public healthcare system to a two-tiered model by those in power have left our services underfunded and unequal. How will your government invest in a fully public, non-for-profit healthcare system that guarantees that every Canadian, the same high standard of care, supports our frontline workers and puts patients before profit? It's a bit of a big question.
Okay, yeah, please do. So 3 minutes, yeah, 3 minutes.
Very well. I don't want to disparage the healthcare system we have, but just looking at it objectively, it's not healthcare, it's health insurance. So the government is a single payer model. Everybody's tax dollars goes into this system, and you have health insurance, and if and when something goes wrong, that health insurance system pays out. The problem I see with healthcare, though, is it's not that it's public or private, or it's only public, it's only private. The problem is it's a cartel. Like, we have these colleges of physicians that bog the system down. They dictate how many doctors have to be created every year through the universities that license these doctors. And then we have a top-down, what I call a Soviet system, where, I mean, I'm just making this up, but like, if you have to amputate your toe, it costs $75. If you have to fix your broken arm, it costs $180. And it's not market driven. Now, I'm not saying that if somebody gets in a car accident and we don't extend health insurance, then we let them die. But like everything else in society, if you have to be responsible, if you can afford healthcare, you should pay for your own health insurance. If you can't, then we step in and help you. It's the same way we deal with food. with housing, if you have a single mother, like with nursing, and you don't just, it seems like a great idea because you want the same outcome at the end. You want everyone to have the best healthcare system. What ends up happening is you have people that are completely reliant on government and are completely incapable of being independent, being resourceful. So we're stuck in the state of arrested development. So to answer your question, I don't want to harm the frontline workers. I don't want to harm people, but we have to treat them like individuals and tell them, you know, you have to make your way through life. That's how you get freedom, through responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. That was 2 minutes. You could have spent another 1 minute. Okay, Ms. Nolan, you ready?
Yeah, this is an issue that I think we all very keenly and deeply feel. Our family has gone through 5 GPs in Squamish in 6 years because doctors cannot afford to live in our communities, and also it's not profitable to be a GP. They end up going to like ER or specializing because they can't stay in their fields. I think since the 1970s, in the 1970s, the federal government promised to put 50% of the healthcare cover 50% of the healthcare costs, and right now they cover about 22%. So it absolutely, we need to put more money into our healthcare system. There are some really great models that we see in other countries where, like for instance, in Australia, what they do is they actually fund the education of doctors and nurses, and then there's an expectation and obligation that they work for 2 years in different communities to basically pay that back. And I think that's something that should be explored here. And if you want to ask about how we can fund these kinds of programs, we could stop subsidizing fossil fuel companies. Because another huge impact to our healthcare system are the uncounted impacts of climate change. We have people with respiratory illnesses. We have people obviously getting injured in natural disasters. It's a massive toll. And it's also, part of the climate change emergency is mental health toll. We need to support our people, and it's absolutely ludicrous that we're supporting the most lucrative industry of all time. I mean, work with me here. They don't need our money. We need our money, and we need it in healthcare. So those are some of the things that we've talked about, like in terms of some of the pieces that the Green Party actually stands for are stable long-term funding of healthcare, like federally, and giving money to the provinces for this. And also, this is probably something that's very applicable in your community, expanding home care and community care. These are pieces that can be more economical for rolling out healthcare initiatives. And the other piece that's really interesting, it's a little bit tangential, but more money towards children's education. Because it's been indicated that if you spend $1 in childcare education, then it actually pays off 7-fold. Because they're more educated, they're more understanding, they don't engage in dangerous activities, and it ends up having all these cascading impacts. So those are some pieces that I would put in place, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leader, are you ready? Go ahead.
Well, so some of you might not know this about me, but a lot of my family come from the healthcare sector. My mom's a chiropractor, my sister's training to be a psychology nurse. And one of the biggest, I will start out by saying healthcare is technically a provincial jurisdiction. So the federal government, we don't directly control it. But the main thing we do control is funding. And every year since 2015, the Liberals have reduced the amount of transfer payments to the provinces for healthcare. How are we supposed to repair the system if they're continuously getting less money? It's the classic right-wing playbook that started with Harper. They always said they weren't going to implement two-tier system during the reform days because they were smarter. They knew the public wouldn't accept that. Instead, what they have done, and what Doug Ford in Ontario have done, and what if the BC Conservatives have gotten in here, what they would do, is they slowly cut away the public service so it stops working properly. So there's longer wait times. And then they go, oh, the public system's not working and the wait times are too long. We need to implement a two-tier system so people can get by. It's a scam. We need a public healthcare system. We need a properly funded healthcare system. And the NDP has been working towards that more. We got pharmacare passed, we've gotten dental care passed, but it's not enough. One of the main issues that got me started in politics, what motivated me when I ran provincially last time, was the complete and utter lack of mental health support we have on the Sunshine Coast. I've lost multiple friends from suicide and overdose because there is no support in schools. I used to go here to Elfie. I had to switch schools because when I came out, I got bullied so hard. I was beat up. No support. No support. I was in a waiting list for 3 years just to see a counselor. That's not okay. And we are proposing with the NDP to put mental health in the public funded system because you should not have to go broke because you're struggling with anxiety or depression. You should be able to access that care. We really, I mean, it's one of those issues that ties into so many things. You know, we have really a reactive healthcare system. We're treating injuries, we're treating, you know, things after they happen, but we need to focus more on prevention. You know, teaching people to be physically fit, you know, reducing the chemicals in the water. As Lauren was talking about, climate change has a huge impact on people's health. All the microplastics in the water, if you've read any of the stories with that, it's terrifying. But the government's not talking about that because it doesn't help them. You know, seniors, we have a lot of seniors on the coast, and one of the most important issues here is long-term care. We have a complete lack of long-term care because we have a for-profit system. When it comes to people's well-being, when it comes to people's life, profit should never be on the picture because people will always suffer. We saw that during COVID. I was recently reading Jack Layton's book where he was talking about his father's experience trying to get him into a working long-term care. This was 20 years ago. And even then, before COVID, it was so bad. He saw the difference between a public system and a private system. And we need to incorporate more into the public system. Yeah.
Thank you. We have 3 minutes for you.
Thank you very much. I think one of the things that distinguishes us from the Americans that's very notable is that we have a public healthcare system. It's something that we all cherish. And we're not like it is in the United States, where you have about 325,000 people that go bankrupt every year because of their medical bills. But it's also true that our healthcare system hasn't been meeting our expectations for many years now. And so there's major changes that are needed. The federal government, well, first I'm just going to correct a couple of things. The federal government's funding for healthcare has not gone down. In fact, it went up significantly when a new healthcare deal was signed with all the provinces 2 years ago. This new healthcare deal, amongst other things, because the federal government does not control how the provinces spend that money, but we can withhold payments under the Canada Health Act if services aren't being provided. And we've very notably done that in places like New Brunswick when there wasn't access to things like abortion services. But as part of this new agreement, we found ways of working with provinces to make progress in the areas that they've identified. One of those that's very important in British Columbia is tackling mental health. And as part of this agreement, there's 35 boundaries that are being established across the province. These are healthcare facilities, low barrier facilities for youth to get access to mental health support and addictions and treatment as well. There's one that was just established in Squamish a few years ago, and very soon we're going to have one on the Sunshine Coast as well. This is a really, really critical step forward. But as was mentioned before, we have a major shortage in our healthcare workers. And part of that is, as Payman mentioned earlier, it's so difficult for people to get trained or to get certified to practice here. The federal government created a fund to support provinces to speed up their foreign credential recognition. And we're seeing the benefits of that already in British Columbia, where 6 times more nurses have been credentialed annually since before that was brought in. But as the other part of it as well that we're working on is having labor mobility in Canada, so that if you're licensed to practice in one province, you'll be able to practice in all provinces. And this is something there's been some significant progress made right now, and all provinces are coming forward with all the barriers that we have to interprovincial trade. This is being one of them, with a plan on how they're going to be able to get rid of that by July 1st. We have major shortages on the Sunshine Coast. And to Lauren's point earlier, we actually do have a loan forgiveness program if you're a nurse or a doctor that goes to work in a rural area. You can get $60,000 of student loan forgiveness if you come work on the Sunshine Coast. So this is one of the key ways that we're going to encourage people to come work here. We also need to find ways of housing the people that are coming here as well. But this is part of our comprehensive plan of how we're going to improve healthcare right across the country.
Kim, she's from BC Marine Ferry Workers Union, representative to the Labor Council, and she's going to have a question about affordability. So this time we're gonna switch up. So let's go orange, purple, red, green. How's that? Yeah. Okay.
Great. So my question to you today, sorry, I was gonna get to those. Many of the policies by those in power have left working families burdened by rising costs, while wealth continues to concentrate at the top. How will you break from the failed legacy and redirect public investment into affordable, community-built infrastructure that truly combats inequality and supports working Canadians?
Thank you, Ms. Kim. So yeah, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, one of the first things I think we need to do is stop cutting taxes for the wealthy. They have enough money. We don't need to cut any more taxes for them. So, and another thing, many of these things add up to the cost of living for middle and lower class people. Climate change is a huge contributor. If your low income and your house gets destroyed in a storm or damaged in a storm, you don't have the spare money to pay for that. That's why we don't, unlike the Conservative Party, we don't want to get rid of the corporate carbon tax. It should be the billionaires who are polluting the planet, who are paying for government services. We have one of the biggest deficits in Canadian history. And the NDP, we're the only party that's only promising tax cuts to help people. We're promising a break of GST on household goods, everyday essentials, like everyday essentials, mostly food. So that normal people can actually benefit from that tax cut. Unlike the Liberals, who their first thing, as I mentioned earlier, was cutting taxes for millionaires and billionaires with their capital gains tax. We need to keep that money so we can fund it for people. The other thing we need to do is not cut services. The Liberals and Conservatives are both planning to cut services for regular people. One of the biggest things is my sister, she has ADHD. She needs medication in order to function. But if we cut pharmacare, that makes costs go up for regular people. If we cut dental care, that makes costs go up for regular people. We have gotten those costs down for people. We need to continue having that. I don't know about Lauren or Payman, or I guess I don't really know about him either, but most people in power come from power. They come from a wealthy background. I don't. You know, anyone who knows me knows that I've been on the ground struggling to make ends meet. During COVID was one of the hardest times. You know, I had to skip meals because we didn't have enough money to pay for food. And you're not going to get that understanding. You're not going to get that perspective from someone who comes from privileged backgrounds. I do think I'm privileged to some extent, so I'm not going to go too far there. But I can understand what it's like to be stressed out all the time about paying for food, because that's the reality of my generation. We're not going to be able to get housing. We're not going to be able to pay for food or school if we don't have a government that steps in, caps prices on rent like the NDP has promised you, caps prices on food like the NDP has promised you, and starts investing in regular people instead of billionaires. We need a progressive tax system. Billionaires pay less taxes now than they did in the 70s. We need to change that. Right now, our tax system is a downward thing. It needs to go up. The more money you make, the more taxes you pay. It's just simple common sense, to steal what the Conservatives like to say.
Thank you. Payment. 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. The price of housing is just completely out of control. It's caused a lot of homelessness, and the youth are they've been locked out of the market. There's all sorts of anxiety on their part, because I was at St. Thomas Aquinas School the other day. There was a 10th grader, and she came to me and she said, "Payman, I agree with a lot of the things you said, but I don't have any hope for the future." She's a 10th grader and she kind of understands that. But what I'd like to do is I want to explore what's the underlying cause that the cost of housing is so expensive. And the reason is that we're printing so much money that we're inflating the value of our money. So people are putting their savings in inflation resistant assets, housing. So housing is turning into a savings vehicle. And the people that actually have money to begin with, or who can get a loan, get a mortgage, they're putting it in housing, and it's going higher and higher and higher. And the working class, they're getting priced out of the market. Now, if we educate ourselves, we can kind of inoculate ourselves. And when it comes election time every 4 years, we can say, okay, how do we tackle that? Do we play with the inflation rate? Do we cap spending? If we do these things and we have responsible government, we can attack the core issues. But if we don't do that, every 4 years, parties are going to come along and they're gonna promise, they're gonna make campaign promises. Sure, I'm not a billionaire. Tax them 100%. I don't care, but I don't think it's going to that's not going to solve the problem in the long run. So my solution would be to tackle the main problems at the root. We got to fix the inflation rate, stop printing money, restore confidence in the Canadian dollar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's Patrick. 3 minutes for you. Thank you.
Well, I think this is a really critical question. And actually, one of the first things that was done in 2015, this is before my time, was taxes were raised on the top 1% and they were dropped on everybody else. And since then, we've actually cut taxes, the basic personal amount, twice since then. And what we promised to do in this campaign is to cut taxes for the lowest income bracket again by another percent. So this is one of the ways we need to make life more affordable from the taxing situation. But as Payman mentioned, one of the key factors in affordability is the housing crisis that we're in right now. So for the first time in my lifetime, in 2017, the federal government got back into the business of housing. There's been over $70 billion that's been invested in below market housing right across the country, including about 272 on the Sunshine Coast. And working together with organizations like the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society is a way we can ensure that we have more affordable housing on the Sunshine Coast. Likewise, I mentioned the agreement that we have to speed up housing permitting on the Sunshine Coast. These are both things that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives would cut immediately. They don't believe in affordable housing like co-ops. They call it Soviet-style housing, and they promise to cut the Housing Accelerator Fund. I mean, other measures we're taking to improve our community and social infrastructure. I mentioned earlier the childcare program, $10 a day childcare. We signed an agreement with every province in 2021. This was a key measure of the former finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, to do that. That's really making life more affordable for families. It's saving them $6,000 to $7,000 a year in childcare costs. It's things like the dental care program, which I said earlier, saving families $800 a year. Both those programs, Conservatives have promised that they would scrap. They called the childcare, $10 a day childcare program, a slush fund, and Pierre Poilievre voted against the dental care program as well. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this space. And I think a lot of it is not so much a top-down approach from the federal government, but it's supporting the leaders that are already doing the work on the ground. I can speak to some of the work the federal government has done working with our food banks on the Sunshine Coast, and through a program called the Local Food Infrastructure Fund. We're working with organizations like One Straw Society that's providing access to low-cost groceries across the Sunshine Coast. So there's a lot more work that we can do in this area, but I think there's a lot of opportunities for us when we work together to do that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Queen.
Thanks. Yeah, there are a lot of people out there who will tell you, and I believe this is true, that wealth disparity is the biggest problem in our society, and it's where all of this greed proliferates, really. There are crazy statistics out there, like something like the top 1% of our, population holds over 50% of the world's wealth. And that's part of the key issues. one of the issues that's leading to this, to Jaeger's point in talking about privilege, I have the good fortune of being housing secure. So the way that I experience the affordability crisis is losing all of my community to attrition, because I have almost all of my friends are housing insecure. And it's a really scary situation. And a lot of them are food insecure too. So affordability is a massive issue. And one of the pieces that it comes down to is, we need some tax restructuring. One of the things the Greens are suggesting is to take that basic level of income that is not taxed and moving it from, I think it's $15,000 a year now, to $40,000. So that means people who make less than $100,000 a year will have about $300 extra in their pocket every month. So that's one initiative. And of course, I'm going to get real broken record about this. Stop subsidizing fossil fuel companies. So, again, just bring that money back to our younger generations. But also another really interesting piece is that corporate taxation accounts for about 1/3 of our tax revenue in this country, which means that we are the other 2/3. And then we, again, are subsidizing these companies. Like Amazon gets subsidies. Jeff Bezos does not need subsidies. So those pieces are just really kind of low-hanging fruit to bring that money back into our economic ecosystem. And another piece that, in terms of housing affordability specifically, international real estate speculation, we have to do something about that. I keep hearing rumors about a ton of money laundering through real estate. We need more legislation around that. We need legislation around real estate investment trusts. If you don't know what those are, I'll tell you about it later. They're gross. And right now, our municipalities, again, this is falling on our municipalities. We're trying to Squamish. We're killing ourselves trying to build affordable housing. We need that money from our federal and provincial governments to actually get this off the ground. We need to invest in affordable housing. Because it's true, the youth of today, my friends, I'm a little bit older than you, but my friends are housing insecure. And so that makes me very worried for my children and also anybody younger than me. So these are pieces that are absolutely need to be addressed. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. So how's the sound going? Can you hear well?
Yep.
Yeah, so Mr. Peter, he set it up for us today. Well done, Peter. Yay. Now I'm gonna get my real brother, Darren, to come on up here. He is a QP 801, a school board worker. He's a HVAC, a plumber guy. Any blockage, you just call him up and he will fix it up. Okay? So here he is. He's gonna have a question about anyone, any brokerage, economics and jobs. Here you go. Oh, then, we're gonna switch it up again. What about Miss Green? Go first. Green, red. Did we do purple and orange? Yeah, you'll be the last one. Last year. Okay. Here you go.
Economy and jobs. Years of economic policies that favor the elite have hollowed out stable union-supported jobs, leaving workers behind. What concrete measures will you implement to rebuild our economy? Prioritizing investment in job creation, reinforcing union workplaces, and ensuring that prosperity benefits all working Canadians rather than just a few.
Thanks, Darren. Good question. Okay, so Miss Greenlow, 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks for the question. Well, the Greens have a long history of standing in solidarity with unions. My sister/campaign manager was also a union contract negotiator. So this is something the unions have been just such an incredibly important part of building strong labor laws and people having rights. I come from the resource industry, and without unions, my entire industry would be far more dangerous. And people need to have the right to be able to express their voices. Last year there was a lot of strikes going on in our country, and sorry, but the Liberals, forced 3 times, they forced people back to work without renegotiating their agreements. And that's problematic. But some of the concrete items, some of the concrete pieces that we're doing, one of the pieces that I'm working on right now with the team is we're creating an in-depth, basically business ecosystem in the entire riding. And the idea is that we want to start facilitating bringing local products to market and removing the barriers for people who are in agriculture, people who are makers, like any business barriers, just trying to tear them down. Some of the governance bureaucracy that might be just too overburdened, trying to facilitate the buy local movement. I have been buying local for over a decade now, and it is absolutely not facilitated, but I do very strongly believe that we need to invest in our local economy and our local businesses as much as we can to create that economic resilience within our riding. And that's one of the ways that we can have resilience against, political instability, not naming names here about America, and also resilience against climate change, because that will increasingly impact not just our food security, but everything in our way of life. So those are some of the pieces that we would like to do. And then just, I think also investing in the clean energy sector, right? And trying to get good jobs in that area, because we need to transition really badly. So again, we could fund this by cutting fossil fuel subsidies. So yeah, those are some of the pieces. We need to move into a green economy. We need to have strong labor forces to do that. And we need to have a resilient economy. Otherwise, we don't have resilience in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lino. Next up is Patrick, Mr. Weiler. Go ahead, 3 minutes for you.
Thank you very much. Well, I think it's important to keep in mind the federal jurisdiction. The federal jurisdiction relates to industries that are under that area, which are not actually many in Canada. But one of the first things that the Liberals did back in 2015, after coming to the office, was repeal 2 anti-union laws that the Conservative Party brought in with Pierre Poilievre as a minister. These are ones that required unions to show their finances before getting into job action. And they're also ones that made it harder for them to unionize. And so since then, and actually just last year, moving ahead on one of the commitments we made in our 2021 platform, we brought in anti-scab legislation to ensure that replacement workers can't be brought in on job sites. And this is really important because we don't want to tip the scales one way. We firmly believe that the best agreements are achieved at the table. And actually, to Lauren's point earlier, while we don't have jurisdiction over some sectors of the economy, when we're talking about clean tech, we put forward a whole host of investment tax credits to support the growth of the green economy. That's things like in battery manufacturing, things like in clean hydrogen, and renewable energy. And we've made it a condition of these investment tax credits that the company, in order to receive the full amount, they have to provide union jobs. And this is because we know unions have fought for so many things in our country, whether that's 40-hour work week, whether that's things like the weekend. And we need to protect those workers as much as we can in Canada. And I think that's why we need to be very, very concerned about the Conservative Party cosplaying as being a friend of workers right now, showing up on the factory floors as if their last decade they had in power meant nothing. And I thought it was actually very telling when Pierre Poilievre was first elected chosen as the leader of the Conservative Party. One of the biggest unions in Canada put out a statement saying that Pierre Poilievre would be more comfortable being the governor of a state like Alabama because of the policies that he's supported over time that have done so much harm to unions in Canada. So we absolutely can't go down that road. Actually, the Conservative Party still have in their constitution right to work. So I think it's important that people not be fooled about what the Conservative Party's about, because they're just cosplaying at being a support for workers.
Thank you very much. Your turn. 3 minutes, please.
Thank you for the question. To me, this is not a partisan issue of liberal versus conservative. I think the tariff war with the US has kind of brought it to the forefront that the world is going to go a little bit more protectionist. If you look at what Donald Trump is doing with the tariffs, he's trying to onshore industry. And that's the problem I see in Canada. It's starting with NAFTA under Brian Mulroney. We started outsourcing industry, manufacturing jobs to China. And now that, that's made it even harder for the working class. I already talked about the financialization of the economy, which is, we're talking about speculation. We blame it on international speculators, but it can happen here in Canada as well. So I came across an article actually today. It said that the profits of the commercial sector, the commercial banking sector in Canada is greater than the next 9 industries combined. So the banks are making more profit than everything, including retail, including hotels, and any kind of manufacturing or service industry. So we have two different societies in Canada. You have the people that actually work, and then you have the people that speculate on that work, the people that trade stocks, the people that short stocks, the people that buy up property. I think what's going to happen, Trump has just forced our hand. We're going to go more protectionist, and we're going to have to come up with a vision. And I don't claim to have that vision here today, but somebody has to give a vision for the next 20 years of how we're going to do this across multiple administrations and multiple different governments to bring back business jobs, working class jobs. Thank you.
Mr. Rosenberg, your turn. 3 minutes.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Patrick for making my point for me by bragging about all the NDP accomplishments in the last parliament. The NDP, again, is the party of workers. I started working full-time at 14 in order to try and help my family make ends meet. And for my generation, union jobs are not achievable. It's not something that's realistic for us to aim for. And I don't think that's okay. But unfortunately, the economy's been changing. So forestry, the mill and other jobs like that are good paying union jobs have been exported and outsourced to China and other countries where they don't treat their workers well. They don't have high wages. And a lot of this is a result of our capitalist system. Capitalism does not put the interest of workers in mind. It puts the interest of profit and shareholders. And if you continue to elect parties that openly support shareholder capitalist, billionaires over workers, you're going to keep getting the same result where they try and do trickle-down economics and lie to you and say, oh, if we tax cut for the billionaires, it will put more money in your pockets. It's not going to. It never has. It hasn't worked since the 80s. It's not going to magically work now. So we need to punish companies like Amazon and Starbucks that are engaging in union busting activities. We need to strengthen worker protections. Provincially, the BC NDP, we got 5-day mandatory sick days passed during the pandemic. And that is a lifesaver for people, quite literally. We've gone, I think I already said anti-scam legislation, but we've gotten that passed. We've gotten other worker protections. The Liberal government has repeatedly broken up strikes. When workers are trying to get a fair deal with their employers so they can get a fair wage and fair benefits, the government should not be stepping in and forcing them to go back to work. The government should be siding with the people, the workers. And I think that's all I have to say because Peter has a question.
I think we were right on time. I have one more question. That's going to get us to 7:15. And Alfie kids, you're going to be ready. Okay? There's 2 handsome boys we got here. There's a mistake happening. So we are going to have a question from Peter, who is a SCTA Teachers Union representative. He is nearing to the pension age. No. No. He has a question about the pensions you all wanted to hear. Here you go.
Yes, my name's Peter McConnell. I'm a physics and math sciences teacher at Chetlich Secondary in Seashell. My question tonight is about pensions. Decades of underinvestment and austerity measures by those in power have eroded the security of our public pension system, leaving many workers vulnerable in retirement. How will you restore and protect our pensions through robust public investment and union-backed reforms, ensuring every Canadian worker can afford or look forward to a dignified, secure retirement?
Did you get that? All good? Okay, let's go from Patrick and then down this way. Okay, so Patrick, go first. 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, before getting into that, I want to answer something that Payman brought up earlier about the type of world that we're entering into right now. And I think it would actually be a mistake for Canada to become isolationist. We know that we can't rely on the United States as a reliable trading partner, but we've got free trade agreements with over 50 other countries in the world. And I think we need to work with them and be able to access those markets for whether that's forestry products or whatever the case may be. And I know there's a lot of liberal democracies around the world that believe the same thing. And who knows, maybe down the road the Americans come to their senses again. But I think it would be a mistake. It would have a massive impact for our economy if we became protectionist as well. And I think that's something we should be very careful about avoiding. We could build up our internal market by taking down interprovincial trade barriers. Just that alone will provide more of a positive benefit than the Trump tariffs would be a negative benefit in Canada. But to your question, to talk about pensions, one of the first things that the Liberals did in 2015 when coming back into power was cancel the Conservatives' plan to increase the eligibility age from 65 to 67 for OAS. On top of that, we've done some increases. We've increased GIS by 10%. We've increased OAS by 10% for seniors over the age of 75. And we've increased the contributions that businesses are making to CPP so that we know that we're going to have strong access to CPP when folks are getting to the age of retirement. And we very much needed to do that because people are living longer these days, and we need to make sure that they have the access to the support that they need. On top of that, given the disruption that Donald Trump has done to the financial markets, it's having a major impact on seniors' retirement savings right now. We just made an announcement earlier today that we're going to reduce the minimum amount that folks need to withdraw from their registered retirement income funds this year so that they're not having to pull funds out when the market is being hammered by the incredibly stupid things that Donald Trump is doing right now. And in addition to that, for low-income seniors that are living on fixed incomes, we promised to increase the GIS this year that will ensure seniors get access to almost an additional $700 a year. So these are the type of things that we need to do to make sure that seniors and all of us that are contributing to our social safety net are going to have access to it when we get to the age of retirement. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, again, I think it's telling that the Conservative candidate hasn't even bothered to show up to this debate. He pretends to care about workers. He pretends to care about seniors, but can't even show up to answer their questions or tell them his plan for what he will do for you. I think it's quite frankly disgusting that people work their whole lives. They contribute to our economy. They contribute to our society. They contribute to as people. They have their lives, and then they don't get to live a proper retirement. They're, as Patrick mentioned, the Conservatives during their last government and Pierre Poilievre raised the retirement age by 2 years. You know, frankly, working from, say, age 18, though most people now are starting to work more like 13, 14, until you're 65 is already quite a long time to be contributing and working in the economy. And now, with how the economy is going, people, even when they're at that age, when they're at their retirement age, they still can't afford to make ends meet on their pensions. They have to go back into the workforce. When I was working at Clayton's and Seashell, I had a coworker who was in her 80s because she couldn't afford to live on her pension. And we need to reinforce that. You know, I don't want my parents to have to struggle to be able to afford to live when they're older. I don't want my grandparents to have to struggle to afford to live. And that also goes along with reinforcing long-term care. So first, we need to put in more mechanisms so people can age in place. They can live in their home, they can stay in their community. But when people can't care for themselves, they need to have something to fall back on. They need to have good, well-funded, ethical treating long-term care facilities where they are treated with dignity. They're treated as human beings, not just, you know, an afterthought. In our current economy, people are treated as a resource. They are worked and worked and worked until they get too old to work, and then they are shoved away. They are ignored. They are treated as a burden. And I don't think that's acceptable. People are people, and no matter what age they are, they deserve respect. And we need to increase our pension funding. The NDP is planning on enforcing pensions. So if the company goes bankrupt, your pension isn't on the line. And there's so much more we need to do, but we need to actually have the conversations with the people affected. We can't just do a top-down approach. We need a bottom-up approach.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I think one of the first things that we need to do with pensions is make sure that they are as secure as they possibly can be. And one of the pieces that we hear about investment around the world right now, and maybe you're personally experiencing it, is that we need to divest our pension funds from problematic industries, and we need to make sure that they are invested in industries that will grow and proliferate. Right now, my understanding is that quite a lot of our pensions are invested in, say it with me now, fossil fuels. And that's just, I mean, we better hope, like knock on all the woods, that that is not a long-term industry. So that's a really important piece. Like we need to keep this money invested in safe resources. Right now, it's really, really being gambled with. I think parts of the other ones, I mean, I like to say in my council role that everything is interconnected to an infuriating degree. And this is no exception. A lot of these issues come down to real deep systemic issues, you know. There is a real inequity in our society, and some of it is ageism, some of it is ageist inequity. But what we need to do is have much more support, like even on a community level, as individuals helping our fellow seniors out, you know, or seniors in our community. I'm not a senior yet, but but you know, we need to start facilitating some grassroots kind of ideology like that, of just having more community building. I really do think that right now, one of the conversations that we should be having is how do we become more responsible citizens? And how do we hold each other? And how do we hold people accountable? So I think some of the concrete answers come from community building and supporting each other. In terms of you know, some of the aspects that, and again, it ties back to some of that affordability piece, right? Which ties back again into like tax restructuring and being able to invest funds into these important pieces, because people who have been working for a long time and they have access to a pension, which many of us will only ever have access to the CPP. But for those of us who do have a pension in place, we need to make sure that those people are actually collecting what they were promised. You know, and that's a big conversation right now, is moving from a defined contribution to defined benefit. Yeah, so these are pieces that we need to make sure that those assurances are in place to make sure that these promises can be helped and that our seniors are healthy and safe. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, so before you go into your speech, can I have the two students come on up? Just make your way this way. Okay, so Payman, your turn. Please go ahead for 3 minutes.
This is not an attack on Mr. Weiler's government. This is an issue that's just inherent to any government. We are asking the people that are harming us to fix the problem. And what's being done to the seniors is absolutely disgusting. We are inflating their savings because the government knows that if they inflate the value of money, they technically have to pay them out less. And the other thing is these people, these citizens, they paid into their pensions all their life. And if they die, tragically pass away, they can't pass what they worked hard for to their loved ones, to their children, their spouse. If you're asking me how we can solve the problem, you can peg your pensions to inflation. That's going to cause other problems. It means you have to find somewhere to get that money to pay out the seniors. But let's be honest, these are seniors. They have nowhere to go. They're on a fixed income. If they can't pay their rent, what's going to happen? Somebody has to do something about them. The other thing you can do, you can turn to the government bureaucrats and say, why is it that your pension is pegged to inflation, but the simple citizen's pension isn't? To take away whatever they would have earned from that inflation pegged pension and give that to the seniors. The other thing is that we have a problem with our pension system in that we're finding it very difficult to pay for the pensions. The pensions were brought in 1965. The quote unquote baby boomer generations, you had about 4 or 5 children per family. And when you have 4 to 5 children, they came up with the idea to get the World War II generation to leave the workforce. Each baby boomer entering the workforce in 65, they would pay about 2.5% of their salary. The company would match that. With that, and you got 4 or 5 people, you can get somebody to retire. Now we're having less children, and it's putting a lot of strain on that pension system. So it's an inflation issue. It's an unfairness issue where if they pass away tragically, they don't get to pass on their savings. And it's also the demographics, the birth rate. We're not having enough children to sustain this, so we need to revisit the pension and make it so that it's to steal a term from the left, more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you guys are doing a great job. Yeah. Don't you think? They're such a great company. Okay, so we have 2 questions coming from Elphiston student. They are good-looking young men. Well, grade 12, right? Graduating this year. Come on up. You were so far away. Xander and Jeremy. Who's going to go first? Okay, your turn. Oh, so let's do this way. Did we do that one? Okay, so yeah, this way. Yeah. Okay, so 2 minutes for this question.
I just want to first start off with saying that me and Xander are both very grateful to be given this opportunity to speak to you guys today. We are both grade 12 students here at Elphinstone Secondary School, and we both plan to attend post-secondary. I am personally very excited for this next chapter of my life, but I'm also very concerned about affordability and security when I go to school. My question is, how will your party support struggling university students that cannot afford housing, food, and other basic necessities? And yes, just to note, I fully intend on working while studying, and I've also saved a lot to attend university. Even despite this, I'm still very concerned that it'll be a struggle for me and my peers. Thank you.
Payment. Go ahead. So you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question. What I would say is that it's not your fault. It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you made bad life decisions. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, the anti-commercial bank, anti-central banker guy, but the reason you're suffering so much, the reason you can't afford food and you can't afford housing is because of inflation. Like, we're printing too much money, and so that obviously that makes food expensive, it makes everything expensive. But also the people that have the means, the people that had money, you're starting out your life. You don't have the same savings built up, and you missed that ship. You're like, unless we get inflation under control, unless we deal with the interest rate, and unless we stop the speculation, you're never going to be able to own housing. So if you're asking me what I'm going to do, the first thing you have to do is get inflation under control. You can do that by switching to like some sort of commodity to tether, to anchor your dollar. So the greedy bureaucrats can't just promise everything under the sun. to get people's votes, which indirectly hurts you. You could set it at a 0% inflation rate through the central bank. And you could also do some housing reform. So you could say land is not a regular product, a regular commodity like a car. You know, it's something that we need to live, and you could limit the amount of land that people can buy. You can limit it, don't let people from outside to buy it, say, 20 years until we get this under control. We're not going to let foreigners buy land. You can deal with how to deal with the ones that already have bought land. But I'm a big free market guy, but this is the problem that was caused by government, and we need to step in and solve it, possibly by interfering in the free market. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Primo, 2 minutes, please.
Thanks. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for participating. It's so hard. I don't know what your experience has been, but like a lot of youth are not engaging, and I think that there is an apathy there, and rightly so, because honestly, your government has not been serving you. And to Payman's point, like there's a lot of things that your government could have done better to set you up for success. Let's put it that way, and a lot of people feel that right now. It's just from a series of systemic issues over time. I think in Canada, I think this is still accurate. We have the highest per capita post-secondary education in the world. And I don't know, as somebody who has 2 degrees, I do wonder if there is far too much influence or far too much, what's the word I'm looking for? Just far too much placed on having post-secondary education. Like we are seeing people who are burdened with $100,000 worth of education debt to become like secretaries. What we need to do is like remove that burden of everybody needing a degree. Sorry, I don't mean like to be disparaging, but there are roles that people are playing that they don't need a 4-year, $100,000 degree for. And I think it's problematic that we've set up the system so that people have to do that to get a job, because young people are ending up starting life in huge debt. So I do wonder if that's a piece that people need to get over, I mean, I've been through the education system in 2 different universities, and so often now it is just a box ticking exercise to get a degree. There are obviously fields where these degrees are pertinent, but I do wonder if we need to shift that narrative a bit. But also we need to support education for trades, like for jobs that we really need, like trades, teachers, doctors, nurses. We need more money going into these education pieces so that these people are entering our workforce without being heavily indebted. Thank you.
Mr. Rosenberg.
I understand what you're going through. I'm going through it right now too. I mentioned earlier that I moved to Germany, and that was because it was cheaper to move to another continent to go to school than it is to go in British Columbia, which is ridiculous. And there's so many things we can do to reduce the cost of living, reduce the cost of schooling. But the first step is young people actually need to have a voice. Young people just don't vote, unfortunately. And there's systematic reasons for that. We need to lower the voting age so that young people in high school can get engaged, they can have their voices heard. Because right now, the government doesn't care what young people think. It doesn't matter. They don't need our voice to get reelected or not. So we need to lower the voting age so young people have voice. We need to get young people into government so that perspective is actually heard. We need to reduce the cost of university, and we need to make public universities. We have high school, we have elementary school in the public system. Why can't we have universities as well? Other countries, university is free. That's why I chose Germany. University there is only 300 euros per semester versus here, where it's like 10,000 euros, I guess dollars here, per semester. It's really not necessary for school to cost that much. And we need to have more of an emphasis on trades. Not everyone needs, as Lauren was saying, a university degree to get by. We are lacking in a lot of trade jobs. We don't have enough electricians. We don't have enough plumbers. But unfortunately, our school system isn't really designed to get people into the trades. So we need more of an emphasis on that. We need to teach people opportunities. At Chatelache, we are quite lucky to have a trade and trades program. They have, I mean, not we, I don't go there anymore, but they have carpentry, they have auto shop here at Elphinstone, they have cooking. And they need to have more of those opportunities. So students see, maybe teaching isn't the only option. I personally am planning on becoming a teacher in university, but we need more options. We need more funding for especially healthcare professionals when they're training in school.
Thank you. Mr. Weiler, for 2 minutes, please.
Well, thank you so much for the question, Jeremy. And it's really inspiring to see young people interested and involved in politics. And it's something for me that I take very seriously. I have a constituency youth council where we have people under the age of 25 all throughout the riding that get together every couple of weeks to actually provide advice for me on what I can do for them and young people. So it's really exciting to see that you're here today. And I think it's a really, really important question. One of the things that we've done in recent years is we've dramatically increased the Canada student grants. It's been increased by about 40%. But also we've taken off all of the interest on the federal student loans. So it'd be very nice if the provinces did the same thing on their portion of it as well. But we've also made it so that you don't have to start repaying your student loans until you're earning a fair income, which is a middle class income in Canada. So this will help make it a little bit easier to get started in your career, as well as our work on building more below market housing in the country, working directly with universities so that we can get more student housing built to help students afford the cost of housing. But I just want to touch on a couple of things that were mentioned in the last question. Lauren, you mentioned that pension should not be investing in fossil fuels. One of the reasons I supported Mark Carney as leader is he's been a leading advocate globally on providing more transparency in investments in bank accounts, or banks investments. It's been appointed by the UN as the special rapporteur on climate and finance for that work. And he's going to bring that same disclosure in Canada so that our banks aren't going to be, well, the risk that's there in the fossil fuel sector is going to be very, very clear. Eamon, you mentioned OAS and GIS and the issues of inflation. They're both pegged to inflation. So when inflation goes up, so do seniors' pensions. And then lastly, with the demographic challenges that we have, I'd be very curious in Eamon's ideas on, doesn't that make a really strong case for why we need to have immigration in Canada to help counterbalance?
Thank you. Well done. Thanks, Jeremy. And so we're gonna have Xander asking a question. While he's asking, if you think of, maybe you have some specific question to ask, we can go until 45. So come on up here and make a line. Okay.
All right. Hello. I have a bit of a shorter question than I feel everyone else has had here, but I feel like it is just equally as important. What is your guys' long-term plan on sustaining and maintaining the beautiful Indigenous lands and forests all over the Sunshine Coast, along with reconciling with our past actions towards the Indigenous peoples?
Trying to take a picture of Xander. I now you know how to do this, right? Who wants to go first? Raise your hand. Should we go from the middle? Okay, so Miss Greenlow is ready, and then go right, and then go that way.
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time, just so I make sure I know?
Let me get back there. All right. What is your long-term plan on sustaining and maintaining the beautiful Indigenous lands and forests all over the Sunshine Coast, along with reconciling with our past actions towards Indigenous peoples?
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, for the first part of your question, honestly, that's not my place to comment, because like we need to have a significant amount of, basically that's in the hands of the Indigenous people. It's their land. They are the ones who should be the drivers in that. You know, one of the reasons why we're in the entire conversation around reconciliation is that throughout colonialism, we took a very paternalistic and oppressive approach to telling the Indigenous peoples what was best to do with their land. So in that respect, like I do believe that piece will require far more than my voice to answer, right? But another piece that I've really noticed in terms of long-term relationships and reconciliation is that, like, on a municipal level, Our governments are completely separated. They're completely separate systems. It's entirely divided through racism, effectively, still. And so there has to be far more communication between the Indigenous communities and our colonial governance structure. That's for sure. But absolutely, I mean, like I said earlier, wealth disparity is, in my opinion, the biggest problem that we have on Earth, and it is predicated upon inequity. And that's gender inequity, that's racial inequity, that's age inequity. It's all of the various ways in which people are not treated equally in our society. So I do feel like reconciliation needs to be top of mind, front of mind when we're talking about these pieces. And I also feel like we can't have a paternalistic approach to it, and we need to have open communication and work through it together. Thank you though. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, so Ken.
Mr. Weiler, I was talking about the Canada Pension Plan. If it's not pegged to inflation, I apologize for that, my mistake. Regarding your second question, how do we deal with the demographic issue? I'm a very simple man. If there's a problem, you figure out what's causing it. So why are people not having children in Canada? Well, if you ask them, they say it's because they can't afford it. There's financial insecurity. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you have to figure out how to deal with that. So you have to fix your economy, get high-paying jobs. That's how you. Sorry? No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you want to talk about immigration, Mr. Weiler, you hinted that we should bring in immigrants. I'm all for that. I mean, I'm an immigrant myself. Just make sure you bring people that respect women, that share our culture. And that's one thing I hear from immigrants when I talk to them. They say they're worried that Canada's changing and some of the people that we're bringing in. Now to answer your question, how do we maintain the beauty of Canada? I would rather do it through a cultural aspect. Get the parents to teach their children to respect the land, as I was taught when I was assimilated into Canada. You know, you go on hikes. You got snow-capped mountains. We love our rivers and our streams. If you outsource that responsibility to government, then you're undermining the authority of parents. That's in my personal opinion, my humble opinion. Now, how do we respect First Nations? How do we reconcile them? By treating them with respect and dignity, by asking them what their grievances are. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm asking them, what is it that has caused you to have concern about how this nation functions? The things that they're worried about is it's the erosion of rule of law. So they had land and they believe the land was taken from them. They take it to court to adjudicate, and the courts are not acting fairly. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Mr. Weiler, have 2 minutes.
Well, thanks for this question. This is one that is very important for me as someone who used to practice in Aboriginal and environmental law. I think all conservation that we do in Canada needs to be Indigenous led. And when I saw the provincial government approving for old growth forests to be cut down in Fairy Creek, this is something that led me to need to stand up. I thought, what can the federal government do to stop this from happening? So I worked with a number of my colleagues to help create an old growth nature fund, which we used and leveraged and built into about $500 million commitment from the federal government, which was matched by the philanthropic sector and the provincial government to protect 30% of land in BC by 2030. And as part of that, there will be about 13,000 square kilometers of old growth forest that's going to be protected. But this agreement is with the federal government and the provincial government and First Nations leadership. And I think that's really, really important, because if you don't do that, then you're just recreating the same kind of colonial structures. And it's actually the First Nations in BC that are going to be identifying the areas that are going to be protected. Of course, areas of the most important ecological value as well. So to your second point of your question, how do we move forward in reconciliation? This is not so much a question for me as a settler, but for First Nations. And part of it is being honest with what's happened in the past in our country. And we're still, I think, at the true stage. We still have people that are denying the history and the reality of residential schools. You have a conservative candidate in the riding just north of us who is promoting some of that denialism. And I think that's very, very dangerous because it re-traumatizes Indigenous people. And I think the path forward, once you're able to be honest with the past, is going to be based on each individual nation. So for some, it's getting back to the land. For others, it's getting rid of some of the colonial issues in the Indian Act. But again, it's got to be Indigenous led.
Well, well, I'm going to start with the environment of our beautiful land. We need to learn how to appreciate it. Like a lot of people here come here because they think the forests and the water are so beautiful, but a lot of people also just don't necessarily see that. So I think it's important to actually go out and touch grass, you know, not always be on the computers and the cell phones. Go out and appreciate nature, and then have politicians who do the same. You know, we need to protect our watershed here on the coast. You know, back 2022, I think it was, Seashell ran out of water and we had to declare a provincial emergency. And those kinds of things are preventable. You know, there are ways to have more water, not more water, but have water that actually gets stored properly. But we also need to support logging. You know, my grandpa was a logger. He lived on Nelson Island, logged up all the coast, but we need to do it in a sustainable way where we support the good paying union logging jobs while also keeping our environment safe and protected for future generations. And on reconciliation, what we really need to do is just listen to people. You know, up here on a debate, you don't really, you know, I'm talking at you. But one of my main things is just listening to what people have to say, hearing their stories. You know, as Lauren said, you know, we've had a really paternalistic approach to reconciliation and Indigenous affairs in Canada. That's not all right. You know, we need to listen to what they're telling us their problems, and we can provide support and engagement. But I'm not, you know, going to tell them what to do. And one of the most important issues that needs to be addressed in reconciliation is mental health. It's one of the biggest disparities between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians. The mental health from the intergenerational trauma and caused by residential schools is a really serious issue. You know, and we need a government that will fund resources to help people address their trauma, address their substance abuse issues, so they can move forward in a productive, healthy way.
Thank you very much. So I think we're gonna bring up. Awesome. Okay, so now question from a public. I think we have 3 or 4 questions. So what we're gonna do is everybody ask you all the questions. Okay, well, 4 people is gonna ask questions. Yeah, we're gonna get through all 4 people first, and then you are going to sort of answer it in 2 minutes, wrap it up, and why we should be voting for you. We have, it's closer to the end of this discussion, so you probably have a closing statement ready, right? So let's get through all our questioners to go through the questions, and then you think about wrap up and sort of answering the question. Does that make sense? No. Yes. Yes. They just have to incorporate their answers. Otherwise, we're going to be running out of time. And I just want to give everybody an opportunity to ask a question. It's probably tying to some of the things you're going to say. So
I'll just talk to you.
Okay, so that would solve the problem. Next.
I'll be pretty quick, and I'll confess straight away that I went to every single candidates meeting in the last election because I was a candidate. And the reason I want to ask this question is because it came from audience after audience, people like you. And it was, why can I not vote for a woman? Because there was no woman there. Okay, now more than 50% of the people in this riding are women. And my question to each one of you is, do you actually think that it does make a difference if people can vote for a woman from your personal perspective, but also from your party's perspective?
All right. Thank you. So, you the last one. Yes. Okay.
This is really, really simple. We have an outreach, Service Canada outreach program here on the Sunshine Coast that is not working. we lined up the other day for 45 minutes outside to get in. We were third on the line. We waited 45 minutes to get service inside. By that time, there's like 30 people. What are you guys going to do to fix that? Like, that's major for us elders that are just trying to get our pensions organized. And
Question before we ask my elder, Miss Donna. Here you go, Donna.
this is a very small, simple question that I've been wondering about. It's to do with taxation. Today I had dinner out in Seashell, and I gave the girl who served us cash as a tip and paid for the meal on my card, a debit card. And I've been told recently that that is cheating the, it's cheating the, what would be paid from my giving her the tip on the card would be that that money would go to taxation to the employer then would have to pay his share. Now, I'm just, it's a funny little question. I'm just very curious about why it would be a better idea to do it that way, because I thought I was making things nicer for the workers. Funny question. So.
Thank you. So did you get all that question in your head? Kind of. I think you're all four very smart people. So I thought you can manage this all. So kind of abstractly answer your question and wrap up statement. Is 2 minutes okay, or you want 3 minutes? 3 minutes. Some might need to use the 3 minutes, then go ahead. And that would be the end of statement. Cool? Okay. And right after this, we're gonna just wrap up the voting information and the closing remarks. Okay, so last statement from you, Mr. Pigman.
Thank you very much for the questions. As best as I can remember them, for the question about taxes, I believe that the government should leave as much money in people's pockets as possible. So I would say, don't tax the tip. If you do want to tax people, tax the rich, but at least give some tax cuts for the ones that are really struggling. Regarding the question about gender, I think you should vote for people based on their personality, based on their capabilities. Sure, I mean, the 50-50 would be best. I have no problem with that, but I don't, when I see a woman, I don't think that she's incapable because of her gender or anything like that. And finally, my wrap-up statement: the People's Party, we're a unique party in that we don't believe in pandering, and we don't believe in making campaign promises just to secure your vote. We're all in this together. And we have to make some very hard decisions and have some very difficult conversations. So I ask that you put your faith in me and send me to Ottawa and try to resolve some of these challenges that we've been facing as a nation. It's going back several decades now, because Canadians, especially the youth, they deserve better, and they need more hope for the years ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Roman.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to try not to go on too long about gender, because I will. And thanks for the question. I want to say that science shows that representation is crucially important. Women seeing women in power, crucially important. Racialized girls seeing racialized girls in power, crucially important. So it is hugely influential, and it's really important that we do it. And it needs to be prioritized, because right now it's basically blind. But women are leaving politics at shocking rates because we are not supported in these systems. We are not safe in these systems. We get threatened more than other people do. We have really gross things happen to women in politics. And I want to talk about this whole increasing birth rate thing to support economies. Women are, and this is part of the conservative platform as well. We are not the brood mares that will feed a population growth or an impossible infinite economic growth in a finite system, which is a physical impossibility. We need to move away from this obsession of economic growth that is literally killing us. Women are not having as many children because we are the cultivators of life. We look around us and we see environmental instability, we see political instability, we see a hostile environment where if a woman is killed, it is most likely by their partner. I myself know 2 girls, teenage girls who were murdered by their boyfriends. So that's what we live with. Most women are, and we're sick of taking on the burden of emotional labor, which is really a huge conversation right now that women are really starting to wake up to. So that's how I feel about gender and more. But I'm sorry, I wanted to ask for clarity of what the outreach center provides because I didn't actually know, but I don't. I'll go on to my next question. Okay, so my sister and I have the joy of saying that we are the product of 2 accountants. And I believe what's happening there is when you pay a tip through a credit card, it's easily tracked as income. When you give somebody a cash tip, the government can't track that transaction, so she doesn't pay taxes. So yeah, you did her a solid. Okay, I'm sorry.
So what the outreach is, they do passports, they do, pension,
Okay.
CPP, OSA, that sort of stuff.
Service Canada.
Right, Service Canada. Okay, sorry. At first I thought it was a healthcare clinic. Yeah, okay. So I think there's this real lie that like the government is bloated through its employees. And it's bloated in different ways, but it's not through the employees. You know, we need to continue providing those services. And those are safe, stable jobs that often come with pensions. So it is important that we just provide a lot of support to these industries and cut kind of costs and bloat in other areas. Yeah, that should be supported and that should be addressed because it's getting completely out of hand. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. And Mr. Rosenberg, you have 3 minutes.
Well, I am a man, so unfortunately, I'm a man. So I don't think I should have any say in what women do with their own bodies. And frankly, men who want to control whether or not a woman can get an abortion, which is healthcare, should frankly F off. And I mean, we need more women in politics. We need more representation in politics. I'm going to tie it around to other groups as well. But provincially, we have the first ever majority woman parliament. And I think that is a fantastic thing. And it's largely because in the NDP, I think 68% of our caucus are women. Our local MLA, Randy Neal, she is a woman and she is a strong advocate. And we need to show representation so young girls can see themselves represented in politics. They can see themselves go forward. I've always generally voted for women in politics. I guess I can't do it this election. But it ties to other groups as well. You know, young people need to see other young people in politics. Gay people need to see other gay people in politics. People of color need to see other people of color in politics. Indigenous people need to see other Indigenous people in politics. Representation is really important. With the tax question, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I'm not a tax accountant. And with the services question, you know, we have the Conservatives claiming that bureaucracy is bloated. You know, services aren't being achieved because there's too much bureaucracy. But the problem isn't too much bureaucracy, it's that we don't have enough employees on the ground. And the Conservatives proposing to cut jobs, which 1 means more people won't be able to afford to live, and 2 means that there's less services people rely on. That's not going to help anyone. So we need to protect those government jobs and we need to protect those services that people rely on. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, Mr. Wetter, you got 3 minutes.
So to the first question about, I think it's absolutely critical that that our government bodies are as representative as possible of the populace. You know, not along gender lines, along ethnicity lines. And for me personally, I was named one of the national co-chairs for the Liberal campaign, and I've had a key role in helping recruit candidates, and it's been one of the key objectives for me to make sure that we get very strong female candidates, but also in winnable ridings, because we want to see that we want to see better representation in politics. And actually, for the first time ever in Parliament, we had over 100 women that were elected into the House, and we had the first gender balanced cabinet in Canadian history as well, brought into great fanfare in 2015. To the Service Canada outreach question, the Sunshine Coast needs a Service Canada office, plain and simple. So the outreach, they do great work, but there's more demand than they can meet right now. There is a push right now to, as much as possible, make it so that people can access all the government services online, digitally. There's some great work. There's some major efficiencies that can be found there, but there's a lot of folks that are not comfortable using technology, and we need to make sure that there's access to that. Sunshine Coast effectively is an island. You know, if you're having to rely on someone coming once a month or having to take ferry to go to the city to get access to services, it's not meeting the needs that we have on the Sunshine Coast. The Sunshine Coast Resource Center does some incredible work to really fill that gap. But what we really need on the Sunshine Coast is a Service Canada office, and that's something I've been advocating for some time. I won't add anything to the taxation question. I think Lauren nailed that. So I'll just leave that there. But I just want to thank all the candidates for being here today and everybody for showing up to this debate. It was mentioned earlier by Miyuki, this is one of the most consequential elections in our lifetime. And we see the rise of right-wing populism all around the world. And to think of it, why every vote counts, Donald Trump got less votes in 2024 than he got in 2020. The difference was the Democratic vote stayed home. That's why it's so important that all of you get out to vote in this election so we can prevent that from coming here. Because we know Pierre Poilievre is promised to do things like defund the CBC when we need our cultural institutions more than ever. He's promised to get rid of industrial carbon pricing, which will actually lead Europe to bring in tariffs on us. He's actually promised to remove Canada from the UN when we need to build our partnerships internationally. He's promised to get rid of all of our funding for affordable housing. This is not the direction we want to go. We've got a positive plan to stand up to Trump and build a stronger economy. And that's where I'm going to be focused if you re-elect me as your MP.
Okay, so we are coming to the close end, and I have Mr. Peter providing some information about the election voting and the date we should be going out and vote.
Thanks, I'll be quick. So, key thing, election day, which is the last day you can vote, is going to be on April 28th. Be mindful, people are not tech savvy. You still get a voter registration card, and it should be there, or it should be in your mailbox by April 11th. And it has all the information as to where you can vote, so on and so forth. For those of you who want to vote right away, you can right now. I think in Seashell, the address is 5674 Cowrie Street, Seashell. It's open onwards from today, onwards till election day. And advance voting is on April 18th to 21st on other sites. So that's pretty much it. If you have any more questions, and for those who are tech savvy, Elections Canada will give you more information.
Well done. So, don't you think they done a great job tonight? Yeah, it's wonderful. Wonderful coming, such a high caliber, very intellectual and well thought and big compassion to the community. So thank you so much for stepping up for this position. These guys got to be on a caravan tour from West Vancouver, Sea to Sky, Sunshine goes back and forth, back and forth. So please, when you see them, just give a high five and make sure their energy is well and lit. And take some pizza if you need, because we're going to catch an 8:50 ferry, right? Yeah, so It's a Labor Council member. We're gonna take a picture. If, you know me, I'm Japanese, and we wanted to have a good shots here before everybody leaves. So Labor Council member, come on up here. We're gonna have a picture taken and a vote, vote, vote. If you have a neighbors wondering about it, just to take them with you to go out and vote. Thank you very much, everyone. Well done.
Oh, yeah. Go back. It's the, there we go. All right, big smiles. There we go. Nice to see you. I don't know where it is. Yeah. Anyways, this is. Very well spoken, everybody. So.
I don't know. Is it still filming? Oh my god. You might be, it's probably.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We're live on YouTube.
They told me Tuesday, so I sent my car here on Tuesday. Then there's no, then there's family of mine. When we got to TC, no, you're right.
This way.
Right.
Thanks.
I'm thinking that it's not. I was gonna say, I have